So we're going to dive right into the top 10 features of Inventor and Vault 2026. Just full transparency, this is a repeat of the webinar. Most of it is to memory. I did lose my notes, so we're going to get through this as best we can. But please interrupt, ask any questions. Don't have to wait until the end. Liana will interrupt me with any questions you might have, and I'll try to address them at that particular moment. Or maybe it's going to be addressed later on in the presentation. I'll let you know that as well. All Absolutely. Right. Great. All right. Thank you again. All right. So hopefully everyone is upgraded to 2026. If you haven't, the good news is there's been some great updates to it. There was a .1 that was released about a month or so ago. And I found that 2026, both Inventor and Vault are very stable. I think they're as stable as 25 and 24 were, coming out of the box. And there are some exciting new features that they put into the software. And so we're going to dive right into those. Share my screen. Some of the things I'm going to show or address, it's not actually brand new, but they've been improving over the last few versions. And I'm only bringing this up because I've been doing a lot of tech support calls with some of this in mind. So, for example, companies are complaining about large assemblies and the performance. And I get this question an awful lot. They go from one version to another. Why am I drawing so slow? The views take a long time to update. I got the green corners around the views. And the reason why you see that is Inventor is processing the views. Even though you might have hidden lines suppressed, it's still calculating everything that's there just in case you want to turn them back on. So what's happening a lot of times is you're downloading models, you have complex models, but a lot of times you really only need to see the exterior. And what I'm finding is simplifying the parts enough, because in this particular case of this little engine, right, this is a simple example of it. So this engine is great the way that it is. I need it fully complete. I need all the components inside of it. And if I were to slice through it, just to give you an idea of what's in here, I see internal components. But if I'm going to put this in my assembly file, I don't need to see all the internal components. If I'm sending this to someone who might be doing some packaging of it, or maybe some castings, I don't need to send all the intelligence, intellectual property. I really want to hide that. So what they have done is, back in the day, about 4 or 5 releases ago, and even earlier, it was always called shrink wrap. And it was okay, and it was great for small files. It is now handling larger assemblies much better. And what it'll do is, one of the things that people have been struggling with the shrink wrap, and now it's actually called the simplify. So shrink wrap is gone. They replaced this command, I think it was in 22. But the simplify truly allows you to take the model that you have, and I can create another model, a part file, even though it's an assembly file, an IPT file that is all-inclusive. It's a single part file that I can share with anyone, but I have the ability to remove those internal components. I can fill the voids, and so I'm protecting my intellectual property. But more important, and I'll show you another example, is when I'm using this inside of another assembly, and then I have more of these in there, the complexity is reduced. You're going to see I have 87 components at the bottom right, and I have 331. For those of you who are not familiar with these numbers, 87 is the total number of unique components, and 331 is the total number of components I have in the assembly. So I have one fastener, right? Or let's say I have 5 fasteners. I have one instance of it, and the other 4 are copies, or instances. So you've got one primary and then 4 or 5 that are installed. So you'll see 1 and 5, or in this case, 87 and 331. We want to kind of reduce that number. And if we actually just get out of this for a second, if I'm looking at this printer, I have 168 unique and 331. Let me hide that. Now, when that printer is inside of an assembly file, and I'm creating views, and I'm doing hidden views, it's calculating everything that's inside of this printer. So we want to try to simplify, reduce the complexity, and it will improve performance all around for assemblies and the drawing files especially. So what we typically do in the simplify, and if I look around here, I'm going to see there's a hole for the piston, I've got a space over here. There's some components that might be missing, but what I want to do is truly reduce the amount of information that's there. And I can, all the holes, I don't need them, so I'm going to patch them. And by doing that, I'll be able to create what they call a watertight boundary. And that's what I need in order to fill the voids. And in here, here's the holes. It's going to remove all of them, or I can say none, and I can select which ones I want, or a particular range. But in this case, I'm going to remove all of the holes and all of the tunnels. The tunnel is basically, it's a feature that goes all the way through the model. It's a void. So it can be a square, it can be a circle, not necessarily a hole, but it's a volume that you want to remove. And I'll reduce this. So what I'm doing here is I can create a simplified part, and I can choose what to replace that with. I can do all in one envelope, which to me is kind of silly. I don't think that's very necessary or valuable. Individual little components. But most people truly just want the assembly the way that it is, completely simplified. I can exclude by selecting, or by giving a percentage. I'm going to select components. I don't need the spring, so it goes away. So you can get very selective, very granular, if that's how you want to create the simplified part. And then for the removing the features, it's going to remove the holes. And at any point in time, I can actually preview it. Let's see, that's good for my exclusion. I'm removing my features. I'm going to get rid of the holes, all of them. And if I highlight them, it'll show me the holes that are going away. Again, this through hole, it's going to patch this large cylinder hole. Everything's looking good. And I'll get my tunnels. And what I'm creating, this is my output. I'm taking this assembly file, and I'm going to create a new part file. And I'm going to use a particular template. And the name is always, it gives it a suffix of _1, but I can give the file name anything that I want. It's going to create an IPT file. And then that's the path it's going to be in. And I'm going to choose to create individual solid bodies with seams between them. I like that because if I ever wanted to hide a solid body or move a solid body, I can do that using the direct edit tools. And over here, it's going to fill the internal voids. It's going to remove the internal parts. And once I hit OK to that, it's actually going to create a part file. That is very simplified. And there's only one component, but there's 329 solid bodies. And so now if I section it, let's go here this time. All the voids are filled, all the components are gone that are inside, and it makes the assembly or part file a lot easier to manage. So make use of the simplify command. I'm finding a lot of need for that today. Now, with the example of the printer, if I want to do the same thing, simplify, the settings will be persistent from one session to the next. So all of the settings I just did with the engine is going to be the same for the printer. So I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to hit OK, and let's see what it does. It's a little bit more complicated assembly, a little bit more work going on. But again, the simplified tool is doing much better work with the larger assemblies. So here's my simplified part. And let's slice through it. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. But you see how it didn't fill the voids. It didn't remove the components. And the reason for that, because of this opening right here, between the bottom and the top cover, it can't form a watertight boundary. If it can't do that, it can't fill the voids. So that's one of the issues there. So I'm going to close this. And let's go back to the assembly. So if you haven't explored model states, this is a perfect opportunity for this. So what I can actually do in a model state, again, this was introduced in 2029. It doesn't replace iAssemblies or iParts. It's another strategy or technology that's built into Inventor. So right now I'm in my primary model state, and I want to remove everything that's inside. So what I can actually do is, I don't need to see the top cover right now. I'm going to shut the visibility off just so I can actually see it. Or I'll just create a new model state using the simplify part. Or what I can do is, I'm just going to create a new model state, and I'm going to call it I've already done it a couple of the times. I just want you to see the workflow of it. So I don't want to see any inside parts. So I do want the cover, so I'm just going to shut the visibility off. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing this, but what I'm going to go through here is just select these internal components. Actually, let me back that up just a little bit. Put my cover back on. If I shut several component visibility off, this is not a new feature, but a lot of times people don't know of this. If I want to turn everything that's invisible to be visible, most companies or most users will go through the browser, try to find it and select it. If I drop this down, I can select all invisible components and then right-click visibility. Just turn it back on. All right. If I want to, I created my model state. I want to be able to select everything that's inside the printer. I have another selection in here. I can select all internal components. That's 100% inside of something else. I'll accept it. All of these components are highlighted. It'll save you some energy. And I just right-click and I suppress them. So a little bit quicker doing it that way versus going through, taking the cover off. Again, it's not perfect, but it did get rid of a lot of components that was 100% inside of another component. And now I simply would just go through and suppress. I can't shut up this session. And I would just go through that and clean it up. By doing as much as you can in here and removing this, I'm creating a model state that's much simpler, and I'll save this. And I'll put that cover back on. And in this assembly, I don't need to see everything that's detailed within the printer. I can simply just change the representation and my model state to be no inside parts. And you'll see my numbers will drop. It's much more simplified. And then creating the drawings, just replaced it. And it's going to show me that. There's a component right there, the printer, and right to the right of the name says the state that's actually active, which is a no inside parts. So it's a lot cleaner, less complicated. I've seen companies that have engines and wheels with a lot of detail inside of it don't need to have that kind of detail at the top level assembly. And so now when you create your drawings, the drawings will be faster, it'll update quicker, and it'll just process the hidden views if you need them. So Simplify is a great enhancement to 2026. They've done a lot of work with it over the last few versions. Okay. Any questions at this point?
No questions.
Excellent. Just a little thing. Let's go back to, or let's go to here. I'm just going to open up this part file. It's a little thing, but kind of useful. How many times you draw some geometry and you go to enter the measurements and you get your caps lock on and you do, let's do 20 mm in capital. And before, it always would be red because it's an invalid input. Now it's fine. So it doesn't matter if it's lowercase or uppercase. Now the units all work. It's a little thing, but it's a big deal when you're sketching. It's a huge time saver. A lot of times people enter it, it doesn't take, then they have to change your caps lock back on and off. And so now it'll accept either one. So again, little thing, but very useful. Let me see here. I have mine set to the light mode, but by default now, when you install Inventor, it defaults to the dark theme. So under colors, I have mine set to light. It defaults to dark. I'm not going to switch it because it takes a little bit to switch. But if you like that, it's now hard-coded built into it, and it does default to dark. If I'm creating a new file, this dialog box has changed, and in addition to the open. It took me a little while to get it used to the open, but this is okay with some of the new features in here. We have 3 drop-downs. These 2 I haven't really found a lot of use for yet, but in here, depending on how many templates you have, and I have seen a lot of users that have many, many templates, they're doing a lot of iLogic. So you can actually drop this down, and I can do small icons, extra large icons. I use the medium, it works for me. It's kind of nice, but that's really about it here, and the file new. The file open is where they've made most of the changes. It looks just like the Windows Explorer file open dialog. Your settings in your project file are listed right here. This is your workspace, your frequently used folders, your libraries. And what I like is they added this recent folders. So if I go to a particular, let's see. If I drill down in here and I open up a file, it's going to remember this under your recent. So as you're navigating, a lot of companies will put frequently used subfolders for projects. What's nice is that this will now remember wherever you've been. So the next time you need to open a file, tomorrow or the day after, when you do file open, you don't have to keep navigating deep into the folder structure. It'll be listed right here under your recent folders. The other thing that's nice about this is I can navigate my folders here. The project file is grayed out. So most of us are using Vault today, so we only have a single project file. We have others that are not using Vault. They have many project files. And so you always have to close your files, go to your settings, change your project file, and then open the file. You can now do it right from here as long as there are no files open in Inventor. Again, that rule has not changed. You can't switch project files if files are open. If files are closed, you'll be able to change the project file here. Oh, we have
I
some
don't know
questions.
if we're seeing the screen that you're clicking because none of the windows are showing.
All right, let me stop sharing and then reshare.
Make sure to share the entire screen in case.
What I did. Entire screen.
Oh, and also we have a question. Let's fix that and then I'll read it to you.
Let me see. Is that any better? Can you see what I'm clicking now?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for the input.
Tim. And the question is, I don't know if you already saw it, but it says for install, can you define the full dimension measuring instead of XXX and XX?
Let me see. Is it in the question?
Yep.
Can you define default dimension measuring? Oh, like 3 place and 2 place? Okay. So that actually hasn't changed. If I'm dimensioning, so let's say from here to here, I have 2 place. If you want to be 3 decimal or fractional, whatever you want it to be, that's still done from the styles editor. It will pop up, I promise. There we go. And in your dimensions, you might have, I don't have one right here, so I'm just going to create, I'll take the default ANSI, which is 2 decimal places, and I'll create a new one. And I'll typically call it 3 place. And I'll set my precision to be 3 place and save and close. So then what I'd have to do is when I dimension, I'm still going to get 2 place. Then I'd have to select these dimensions, go to my annotate, drop this down to 3 place. Not bad. Or if I dimension, right, I can change this to be 3 place before I place it. Or if I want that to be the default standard all the time, is in the styles editor. It's called your object default. So in your object defaults, I'm going to set this to my active standard. I'm going to set this to my dimension objects. You can see my default style is default ANSI. I'm just going to change this to be 3 place, and so on. I go down the line for that. And so now when I dimension, I'll get 3 place. So that's just, you manage that with your styles editor. Did I answer that question? I hope.
Scott, let us know if that answers your question. Thank you, Jim.
All right, awesome. Okay, so that's the file open. Oh, so the other new thing in here, when you do file open, and let's go to this file right here. Any file, you can actually now go directly to you're going to see the thumbnail. I can see the different states. So if I wanted to open this at a particular state, I can drop this down and choose it. I don't have any for this one, or I can even go to the eye properties, and I can make changes to the eye properties right here before I even open the file. Again, they're just giving you more ways of accessing the information. You can choose which method works best for you. All right, so that's that. And I do apologize for losing my notes. I'm just looking at the what's new. Styles. All right, so let me see if I can find this file. In this particular case, I am going to create a rectangular pattern on this. What they've done, most of the commands now have all been updated to these new panels. They call these the property panels. And before, you typically would have to click an edge to define the direction. We can now use our X. That is a red. I believe that's a green and a blue, which represents your triad. So if I want to go along the X axis, I can just click here, or I can simply just pick an edge. It's great for non-symmetrical parts. Again, if you want something to go linear, you can use the axes, or you can do the traditional select. So I'm going to have, let's do 4 of these. And my distance, I can drag this. I can eyeball it. And I'll accept that. So if I dimension from this center to this center, they now have a new command where if I dimension from that center to that center, before I place it, I can do linear sum. I can pick that dimension, and I'll get that. So again, it's just giving me the sum of the dimensions in some type of pattern, if that works for you. I think you can format this slightly, but I'm going to have 3 additional at 2.44. And same thing here. This is going to adhere to your standards. This is a new file. I don't have the 3 decimal places, but if I did, it would be here. Or I could simply click a different style. It'll give me the different units. So I'll go back to my default standard, which is 2 decimal places. But if I wanted to, I could use my 3 decimal places. So that's the linear sum dimension. Okay, there's also angular sum. Again, it works very similar, but what it doesn't do, if I get rid of these, And if you haven't used this is a big fan of mine, is the automated center lines. Or I should say I'm a big fan of this. And it'll put center lines on all of my holes, but you notice that didn't do these. The reason for that is these are not holes. These are just round features. I drew a circle and extruded it, so it's not a hole. So when I do the automated center lines, I have to make sure to choose round features, and then I'll get them. So when I do dimension, and I go from center to center, and I try it, and then I'll go from here to here, and I try doing the linear sum, not available. This is a shortcoming. This is a new feature in 2026, so Autodesk is going to be looking for feedback. And we should be able to do it on center lines versus objects. So right now it only works if you pick the center of the circle or the circle themselves to pick up the center. It does not work on the center lines. So you might find little things that may not be functioning. Have any questions when you're using some of the new features, just reach out to MicroCAD and we'll do our best to answer your questions on any of those new features. Let's see. So this one I kind of like. I have a sheet 2 over here, right? I created a projected view and I just moved it. Same if I did a section view and I move it. So we do have some companies that have 5, 10, 15, 20 sheets. And when you're looking at a particular sheet, might be it's a section view, it's a really complicated part. What sheet did it come from? So it's kind of difficult to identify that. So what we can actually do now is we have these identifiers. So if I edit the label in here, I can do sheet index or whatever you want to call it. And I can actually list view label properties. And I can do the parent sheet index or name. So it's going to show me that's on sheet 1. So its parent, where it came from, is on sheet 1. So if I'm looking at sheet 6, 7, or 8, I'll be able to identify where this view was derived from. Very handy when you have multi-sheet drawings. This next feature is actually one of my favorites. This has been something we've been asking for a long time. We know that if we break this view, right, we do views, and we break, I select the view, and I have to eyeball where I want it, maybe from here to here. It's not bad, but the distance here and the distance here is different. There are so many instances where you want uniformity. It would be nice if we could actually locate those breaks dimensionally. And I'm going to delete this. So what you can now do is select the view and create a sketch. Nothing new. We were able to sketch on views in the past. And then I'm going to draw a line from here to here. And I'll draw another line from here to here. I'm going to show you another new feature is that if I want to dimension from this geometry over, I have to project it, right? So I always had to do in my sketch, project geometry, select it. Now all I have to do is dimension from here to here. It'll auto project, right? So that's going to be whatever number it is. I'm just going to do 2.4. And then when I dimension over here, I'm just going to link it to this one. Now I have consistency. And so now when I do the break, I can simply select the sketch. I don't have to select the view. I just select the sketch that's associated to the view. And it breaks it for me. And now I have uniformity between the spacings. I got to look what's going on with my hatching because that's another sketch that I did. So I think I have to work on that one. That's this guy right over here. Let me delete that. There. So again, I can now define where the breaks are and it's consistent. And if I go to the sketch and I change this to be 3, Or how about 4? Get on the other side of that circle. Everything updates. So great. It's a great way of having consistency in your files. Okay. Go back to this guy. I'll just ask a question and you can add it to the comment. I'd like to get an idea of how many, or if we can do a poll, Juliana, is how many users today are actually using iLogic in their designs? And please feel free to answer in the chat and just say, do a yes, and we'll have a list of those. But what I want to get at is not everyone is doing iLogic, but you might want a little bit more control. So like this particular pattern, I may or may not want it. So you got to go through some feature suppressions and everything else. What's new in 26 is I can actually create a Boolean parameter now. So I can do a true or false. I'm going to call it bolt pattern. And that can be true or false. And I'm going to set it to false. It doesn't do anything. And then what I can do in my circular pattern right here and my properties, I can actually do a rule in here. It's always or if bolt pattern is equal to true, right? I want it, or if it's equal to false. So if I say true, I want the pattern. I'm going to change that to true. Let's see what it does. That controls the suppression. It's kind of like the reverse way you're thinking about it. So I'm going to go back into here, properties. This is my suppression. If the bolt pattern is true, I suppress it. If the bolt pattern is false, I won't. So we can do this now with parameters. I want that to be false. And now I can control that with a single parameter versus iLogic programming. Some users want to be able to incorporate a little bit more simplified ways of automating their parts or assemblies, and we can now do it with Boolean parameters. Okay. Let me see here. Let me open up another assembly file. It's a nice way, what I'm going to show you next is the new feature with just housekeeping. So when I go to my parameters, it doesn't matter if it's a part file or an assembly file. You may have a lot of components or a lot of parameters in there. It can get a little unwieldy. What we can now do is group them. So like for my cabinets, my shelf, my countertops, things like that, the doors, instead of having 50 or 60 parameters, just group them together. So I can select my cabinets. You see I can't select multiples. So I'm going to add to a group, and I'll call this create new group here. Cabinet parameters. So it created a group, and then that is my height. And I'm going to add to group to my parameters and my depth. So I can collapse that, and I have my parameters right here. Then I'll just do the countertops. Add to a group. Countertop parameters. So right now I got my countertop width. I'll add this one. Oh, wrong one. Countertop. There we go. Countertop depth. And delete parameter. Remove parameter from group. So a parameter can be in multiple groups. I made a mistake there. And I got my width and my depth, my thickness, This will remember the last one I used, and thickness, and oh no, it's not remembering. It did last one. Okay, and the last one. I think it would be nice if we could drag and drop. We could select multiples. Again, this is the first iteration of this, and I think it will get better. So we can look at the cabinet parameters, the countertop. So instead of getting overwhelmed with, and I've seen them, files that have dozens of parameters, it can get a little unwieldy when you start looking through those and making changes to those. Now you can actually do them by groups. I think it's a nice feature, but still needs improvement. All right. Again, I'm not showing every new feature. I'm trying to show what I think is the most useful, kind of the top 10. So let's get back into my windowsill. And I'm going to delete this rectangular pattern. Delete it. Now I could create a sketch and I could put my points, and that'll allow me to do pattern by a sketch. Sometimes you just want to do a rectangular pattern. Go along here. I want 5. But what might be nice is if I could have, let's see my distance. Let's do that. Okay, 1.9375. But what I can do is I can do an irregular distance. So if I select that feature, I can specify that value is going to be 1 inch. And then I can do another one to here, and that one's going to be 3 inches. So if you want to do irregular distances in your pattern, but still have it as a pattern, it works. So again, that's a brand new feature. I think that one's working really nice. Some of the other ones need some improvements, but this one has been well received as far as what I can see and hear so far from my users. Okay, any questions at this point before I move on?
We're good.
Good? All right. The bolted connection, let me just copy this windowsill. I'll go back to this assembly again. I'm going to put a lot of stuff in here. Paste that. It's a little thing, but when you go into the bolted connection, I do like that we can now define the designation. So if it's a 1/4 inch, what size, and it will help filter when you go into the fasteners, into the content. And if I change this, it's going to change all of the members of that bolted connection. So it's not a huge improvement, but it is nice having the designation part of this. So instead of just being a 1/4 inch, then you place your fastener and then define it. I can now do it before I actually select it. If I'm doing a socketed cap screw or a hex head screw, I can do it right from here. Yeah, not huge, but it's nice. And I've already showed you the simplify. Oh, as far as model states go, we'll do it in this one here. So if I were to create another model state.
Oh, we have one question here.
Okay.
Placing parts, screws, washers, can I copy them if I constrain the first set and not have to constrain each one separately?
Yes and no. If you're in an assembly and you're using the bolted connection it'll pick up patterns. So if you place one, all of the others will go. If you have random holes that are the same size, you want the same connection, you would create one connection, copy and paste, and then you simply just do an insert to place all of the others. So you want to try to make use of patterns. That'll allow you to place one connection, and it will populate all of those that match. And if we have time at the end, I'll try to demonstrate that. But that is the rule of thumb. If you can do patterns, it'll work well. If you don't, if you have, actually, they've improved this where if you have the same size hole, even though it's not a pattern, it will match. As long as the start plane and the termination plane are exactly the same. Because again, that fastener is going to be constructed based on standards to be the right length if you have washers and bolts and things like that. So by placing one, it will try to populate as many as it can dynamically, and they will be constrained.
Thank you, Jim.
Absolutely. So in the model states, I might have a short, and I'll do another one, and then maybe a medium, and let's do a third one. We'll do one that's a long. Okay. So if I activate the short, there we go. Sometimes with the hesitation, I'm expecting a crash. As I said, it is stable. It crashes very rarely on my system and my customers. The ones where it does crash frequently, the word frequently is hard to quantify. If it's crashing several times a day, not several times an hour, that to me is a lot. And what I found is that we need to look at the computer, antivirus, malware. There's a lot of things to consider. So if you are crashing more than, let's say, 3, 4, 5 times a day, reach out to us and we'll give you some guidance as far as what steps to do. All right, so this is my short. And what I'm gonna do is I'm editing that particular model state. And if I look at my sketch, so that one, I'm gonna make this 36. And the extrusion failed because I didn't actually constrain it properly. So that should have come over here. And if I edit, I should actually dimension that from here to here. Again, it's just operator error. I'm just going to fix that. And everything works. Okay, medium. And I'll change my sketch. 36, and we'll do a 40. And let's see here. So I'm not getting the behavior that I'm expecting. So I have this dimension from here. That's 45, we'll do 42. Oh, okay, that's because that's a factor of that. So that is going to be, all right, we'll make this, I'm just going to hard code that at 2. Now if I change that to be 36, or actually let's go back to 40, everything works. Again, operator error. All right, so I've got my short, I've got my medium, and I'll get the long, and let's change this guy once more. We'll make that 50. And we'll make that 3. So now, if I don't want the holes, let's say in the medium and the long, so I have to activate both of them one at a time, and then I have to go to the pattern and then suppress it. What they did now that's new is I can actually select multiples, right? I can select the medium and the long versus I'm editing all of them, right? So that's, I'm editing the entire factory, but most of the time we're modifying a member or a state within there. And right now, anything I do is only for the long. But if I select multiples, Because let's say that I really truly want all of them to have a fillet. So I can do that, and I can do a fillet here and here. And let's make that 1/2 inch. So they'll all have it. But if the medium and long, actually the medium and long don't want that circular pattern, I'm going to shut that off, and now I can do multiple, not all of them, or just singular. And then my circular pattern, I can suppress. And it's going to be for both the medium and the long. So what they've added is I have the ability to modify multiple states at the same time versus singular, or the primary does all of the editing. So again, they're listening to you, and all of the new features have come from the idea station, where users are entering information as far as, hey, I'd like Inventor to do this, I'd like Inventor to do that. Autodesk is reading that, and they're implementing most of those changes in the new versions. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to shut my sketches off. When you're working in an assembly file, we've got these 2 components, or maybe there's 3, or maybe there's 4. So I want to bring both of these down to this face. We know that if we do the make constraint, right? We do a constraint. I got to go from here to there, apply, here to there, and apply. So that's fine. But now I can do here, and I have that set to multiple. By default, it was singular. They've added multi-select. And so now I can select that face and that face, and I can do multiples, really improving the productivity. And I can just move them where I want, and I can space them accordingly. So the multi-select on the make constraint is huge. I didn't think they could improve that command at all, but they certainly did, and I really like that, that addition. Okay. And so the one thing I always mention to everyone, I get a lot of questions, a lot of emails. Inventor just came out with updates. If you go to, where's my mouse? There we go. This Microsoft Access, it's getting better. Still not perfect of a tool, but it will list most of the updates when they're available. If you're using Vault, please call me. But otherwise, you can apply all of the updates except for Vault. And the reason for that, if right now 2026 is out, and if you installed it when it first came out, it was 2026.0. There was no updates. Excuse me. Then they come out with a .1 or maybe a .2, and then you see the .2 update and you apply it. Then all of a sudden you can't log into the server. Vault is very, very sensitive. The server and the client truly need to be at the same dot level. So if you updated the 2026.2, we have to do the same to the server. So it also has the .2 update. They need to be the same in order to communicate properly. So anytime you see a Vault update, contact your manager, contact IT, reach out to MicroCAD as far as the updates and which ones you should install and how you should install them. Most of my Vault customers, I have access to your servers, and I can usually apply the update pretty quickly. We always want to make sure there's a backup first before we apply the update, and then we'll let you know, and then you can apply the updates on the different computers, not a problem. But other than that, apply all of the updates. They will be listed in here, and it won't give you a little bubble notification. Every so often, you just want to check it to see if there's anything in there to install. And Autodesk is coming out with, the last couple of months has been updates on the software and also the licensing, the single sign-on, the identity manager. We're getting a lot of licensing issues because those updates need to be applied, and that typically will solve all of the issues you might be having. And the reason why I say that is Inventor 2021 came out, I think just a few weeks ago, and the updates, they're not just bug fixes. They actually enhance the product. So the new things I'm going to show you right now came out with a .1 update. Yes, it fixes bugs, but it's also going to enhance the product. It'll update features, and actually sometimes introduces new features and functionality. Let's see, translators. I've already showed you one of those with the auto project. I came out with the 2020.1 when I was actually in the drawing file. Here's my windowsill. And I'm going to delete my break. So when I dimension that, it automatically projected the edge. That's one of the new features with .1. And the main constraint enhancement I just showed you, again, that was with the .1. And I think that's going to do it for Inventor. I'm going to jump over to Vault now. I think we've got a few more minutes. Vault is not huge with the updates. They never are. But some of the features in 26 are really important. I'm going to go to a folder. Let's go to something I can mess around with. So I've got two files here. I'm going to create a brand new file. And just for simplicity, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it to my demo. Again, I'm using my new interface here. I'm going to come down to the junk folder. I'm going to call this as UG for user group meeting -123 for simplicity. I'll save it. And then in the Vault, I'll check it in. And I'll delete my local working copy. So in Vault, I created the file, I checked it in. Okay, Vault. Again, I'm going to use a search. Maybe I didn't save it or I thought I saved it. UG-123. All right, demo. Make sure I'm in the right. Oh, I'm in a different. My Vault, I'm in Vault Training. That's what I'm logged into. And that's wrong. That's supposed to be the other one. So I'm going to log into that one. There we go. All right, try this once more. Okay. Just waiting to get Inventor back. All right. So I'm going to create another part file once more. I'll just do a simple little box over here. And I'll save this. UG for user group. I'll just do it 234 this time. Okay. I'm going to check this in. And I'm going to delete my local copy. So I'm going to check it in. I'm going to close it and then delete it from my local drive. And so now if I do a refresh and I go to we'll search on it, UG, asterisk. This is going to show me everything that has UG in it. If you want to narrow that down, I can just add more information in it, asterisk.ipt. And now it reduces the clutter that I'm seeing in the search. I'm going to go to the folder. All right, so it's demo files junk. I had two separate junk folders. Okay, so what I'm going to do is my system is configured, which I highly recommend, is to enforce restriction of check-in, which means you can only check in from a CAD application like AutoCAD or Inventor. And the other thing is I'm enforcing unique file names. So I just created a file called UG234. No one else can create that. It doesn't matter in what folder. If Juliana creates a file, UG234, she tries to check it in, she's going to get an error because the file already exists. That's best practice. Okay, So when that happens, you either have to rename the file that you're trying to check in or rename the one that's already in the vault. Most likely you're going to rename the one that you just created. But in any case, let's say someone's got administrative permissions and they delete this file, so that file doesn't exist. Okay, it's gone. And then if I go over here and I search, there's nothing. Now in Inventor, I'm going to create another file. I'm going to save this as UG-234. I can create it, I can save it, but let's see what happens when I try to check it in. Okay, this all looks good, and then I hit OK. And I'm going to get this error message saying I can't do that because it would cause a duplicate file. That file already exists. So then what you do, you go to Vault, go to the Project Explorer $, because maybe I wasn't at the top. Let me do a U *.ipt. Right, you search, you search, you search. You can't find it anywhere in here. Right, you can't find the UG-234. The reason for that is because it was deleted, but the new feature they added was a trash bin. It's right here. The search does not search the trash bin. I don't know why. So to me, I think we need to do this. So if the search finds it, it should define it. Hey, I found it, but I found it in the trash bin. So in order to make this work, so UG-234, I can either restore it. So now we can actually do that. So even though it's in here, if I deleted it, I can restore it. But if I'm a standard user, I can't delete it. I got to call an administrator. Only an administrator can actually remove the data from here, or I have to elevate the permissions of users. So then what I have to do is I'd have to remove it or delete it permanently. And now, if I try to check it in, it's fine. Oh, check in, not save. Come on, Jen. And now it works fine. So the trash bin is new. It does require to be managed. It does have administrative credentials that are necessary. So it is nice that we have it, but you're going to go a little crazy because you know you deleted the file. You search for it, it doesn't come up. Why can't you check this in? And I'm only speaking from experience because I've done it. I started messing around with 26 before I went through the what's new, and then ran into that issue. It took me a little while to find it. Now that I understand it, it's great. And when you're in Vault as an administrator, you can enable or disable, and then you can configure this, and automatically you can specify that just anything that's in this recycle bin, just delete it after 30 days. You can't adjust the 30. That's something else I think we want. We should be able to do X number of days, and it'll just remove it automatically if that's enabled. So great functionality there. And let's go over to there we go.
Hey, Jim, we have a question.
Okay.
I don't know if you can read the question.
I think I see it from Mike.
Yep. Because I don't know if it's a question.
Yeah, so there is a potential for having to rename a ton of file names upon check-in when one vault and, okay, using one vault and a force unique file name setting. Huge inconvenience. It can be. If you're creating files with similar names, if you're using Vault Basic, you have to have a naming strategy. If you're using Vault Professional, you can use the automatic numbering, which creates unique file names for you, and it makes things a lot easier. It's best practice so that you're creating files, because we see it often. You create a file, you save it as widget, you save it as bracket, you save it as bearing, and we have all these files all over the place. And then what happens is you take it, go from the network to Vault, then we need to get all of these files in. A lot of times they not just the same file name, they are truly the same. So geometrically they're identical, they were copied from one project to another because they weren't using libraries and such. If the system's configured correctly, setting up unique file names it should not be such a big deal. But if you happen to design, like when I'm doing an Inventor, let me see here. And if I go to frame, let's open up this assembly. Let's see, demo. Okay, designs. We'll use this one. I had some issues with some of my files I got to clean up. All right, let's see here. There we go. And I'm going to delete this. I'm going to start over. So absolutely. So we all know that in the application options, if we look at the file and the file names, where are you? Assembly, general. There we go. File name and defaults. This will help you uniquely assign the file or give file names some kind of unique file names, right? It's built into Inventor right now. I don't love it because of the file name structure, but if you're not using that, if you're not using Vault Basic, or if you are using Vault Basic, you got to use somehow, some way to create unique file names, because if you do the bolted connection, the first time Mike used it or Scott, you're going to create bolted connection 1. You try to check it in, bolted connection 1, it doesn't work. Same thing, it's going to happen over and over. Frames is going to always use the same file name, and when you try to check it in, it's a problem. So when I'm using Inventor and I'm using Vault, and I'm doing things like the frame generator, this is a debate, argument, discussion I typically get with most customers. I don't really care what the file names are. They could be sequential, as long as they have a unique file name. I really care more about description, title, the metadata that I'm going to associate with it. If I just do a crossing window on those and I hit OK, I'm not going to worry about the file name because I'm using an FR scheme. And what this is a numbering scheme that comes from Vault. I say I want to do FR dash. I have 6 digits. Vault is going to give me the next sequential number, and it's going to be unique, and I'll never have duplicates. I don't have to worry about it. So I can do frame, or if I wanted, when I do tube and pipe, I do TP or sequential. But when I do frames, I like frame. And when I do that, it's automatically give me unique file names. I don't have to worry about it. It's one of the big advantages of working with Vault Professional is this automatic numbering. Excuse me. I do a lot of frame generator, tube and pipe, and we have to create those file names. I really don't want to give any effort or lose any brain cells over naming those files. I'll let the system do it for me. So all the files get named with an FR dash. Vault is distributing those file names for me. I don't really care what they are because I have access to them graphically. I can see what they are. I can make my changes as necessary. I have full access. If you run into a situation with Vault Basic and you do create files of the same name, you can't check them in because you have it on, you could always shut that switch off. Don't recommend it. Or there are ways of just using what they call Design Assistant. So if I'm trying to check an assembly in and I can't because of duplication, I have the ability of using Design Assistant to rename my files. I don't break the hierarchy, and then I can check them in and everything works fine. It just helps you to keep the clutter, keep the confusion. A lot of times you open up Inventor, hey, found the file here, but now I find it here. Is this the right one? So those file resolutions, if you have the same name in different folders, it can get confused. You can open the wrong file in the wrong path. You think you have the right one. It's really important to understand what files are coming from where, that your assemblies are clean. So it's best practice. You don't have to have it on. So in Vault, you can always shut it off. And we have to do this when we're importing data because we have to allow duplicates on the import, but then we want to start cleaning things up as we go. So as an administrator, I can shut that off and I can loosen that restriction. But these are something that we typically have lengthy conversations with when customers are starting to use Vault, Vault Basic or Vault Professional, and how they want to use it. Because duplicate names are always a problem. And especially when you're using the design accelerator features, it's going back. If I open up Inventor and I open up an assembly, I bolted connection 1. And again, the next one, bolted connection 2. Tomorrow I do the same thing, bolted connection 1. I try to check those in, it's a problem, they don't work. So you have to be conscious about renaming your files. But again, you can shut that switch off. You can work that way. It's just a recommendation to try to work with unique file names, just so that there's no chance of opening the wrong file. Okay? Let's see. Trash bin. The thin client has been updated. We can now just see properties a little bit easier. It's a little bit better. Nothing huge. The biggest thing is the trash bin. Let me see. The one thing I do like about the thin client, to me, there's two big features inside of let's see, Vault. Is the trash bin, and the thin client is the ability to view. Let's go to demo and log in as guest. And I'm looking for gen-cdir. So if I'm looking at a drawing file, and if I look at the view, so this has multiple sheets. And what we had to do in the past was the document browser, which was kind of painful. I want to go with a different sheet. Then you got to close it. We now have it over here. So I can do sheet 2, sheet 1. It's a big deal if you're doing multiple sheets. This is a huge improvement. And again, this and the trash bin were the two biggest features. I did go over today. I do thank you for staying as long as you did. Thank you for the questions. Right now, we'll open up to some Q&A. This is basically the top features, not every feature, but the top. And what I do recommend is take the time when you do the upgrade. I'll show you how I got here. Let me close this. So when you're in Vault, if you drop down the help, go to the Vault Professional Help Topics or Vault Basic. This will open up to the Vault, what's new, and then in the new to Vault, you're going to see the 2026. Again, these are the new enhancements, and these are the enhancements to 2021. 2026.1 update. As I said, they're not just bug fixes, they do enhance the product. And the same thing for Inventor. I drop down the help topics, and the what's new, and same thing over here. These are the new features for 26, and these are the new features for 2026.1. Very, very useful to go through this. Take your time, go through each one of those. If you need translators, Autodesk is always updating these with the primary version and any dot updates. They're always enhancing this. So the compatibility with Revit, SolidWorks, Creo will always be maintained with each of these updates. So definitely worth going through to see all of the new features that are in there. Some of them have little animations. Some of them you can do some YouTube videos, or just reach out to MicroCAD if you're stuck with any new feature, not quite how to understand it. To me, I had a lot of issues with the linear sum and the angular sum. I couldn't get it to work, and then I realized it took a little time, and I figured it out. So we struggle as well with some of the new features, but feel free to reach out on your own, or just contact MicroCAD, and we'll do our best to answer the questions as they come up.
Thank you, Jim, for this wonderful presentation. To not take any more time from you guys, I just wanted to remind you that you have on the upper right hand our contact us button. You also have there our products, training, services, and we also have there the take a survey option. If you could really help us filling it out, it would be great. This really help us keep improving and making our content way more valuable for you.
The only thing I will add to that, Juliana, is feel free to recommend topics for our next user groups. We'd love to hear from you. We want to show what you want to see. So if you have any ideas, struggling with a piece of functionality within Inventor or Vault or electrical, please reach out, and we are happy to focus on some attention on those.
Absolutely. And yeah, with that, I would like to thank everyone. If you check our website and go to our events section, you'll see there are listing for the whole month. And if you find anything that's calling your attention, you can just register. And even if you cannot make it, you will get the on-demand recording, just as this one that you will get tomorrow at 1 p.m. So yeah, I would like to thank everyone for attending, and thank you, Jim, for this wonderful webinar and for all of your interactions. And it makes the webinar way more rich. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.